Shedeur Sanders. The ability to lead this team, the ability to stay tough and fight and get through the adversity, to me, allows him an opportunity to lead the clubhouse at the quarterback position. And it does seem that Todd Monken has some sort of kinship relationship with Shedeur Sanders.
Sometimes a franchise tells you exactly where it is headed without ever making some grand official announcement. It shows up in the small things first. A jersey number, a press conference quote, a practice plan, a coach choosing one name and repeating it with purpose. And right now, all of those signs are pointing in the same direction for the Cleveland Browns. Shedeur Sanders is back in number 2. That matters because number 2 was never just a number for him. It was the identity he carried through Colorado. It was attached to everything people associated with his rise: the spotlight, the debate, the production, the attention he commanded every Saturday. When he got to Cleveland and wore 12, it may have looked minor from the outside, but it still felt like a disconnect. Functional maybe, familiar, no. So getting number 2 back lands differently. It is not just a locker room detail. It feels like recognition. It feels like the Browns saying, stop shrinking this player down to fit the room. Let him be who he has always been. And that message got even louder when Todd Monken stepped to the podium and made the offseason plan clear. Shedeur Sanders is going to get the most reps.
To narrow the reps, or at least balance up the reps of who you anticipate, has come out of the spring. It's been great that he's been in the building. It's refreshing to see a player that recognizes where he's at and where he wants to get to.
In the NFL, that is not background noise. Coaches do not hand out the bulk of quarterback reps just to be polite. They do not build an offseason around a passer they do not seriously intend to evaluate as the guy. Reps are investment, reps are priority, reps are where a coaching staff reveals what it actually believes. So when Monken says Sanders is getting the most work, he is not tossing out a compliment. He is telling you where the development focus is. He is telling you whose future is being taken seriously. He is telling you that Cleveland is no longer treating this like a mystery. That is what makes this shift so important, because last year felt like the opposite. Shedeur came into the league with real expectations. He had the poise, the arm talent, the command, the kind of football IQ that made people believe he could transition. But instead of a clean runway, the picture coming out of Cleveland was hesitation. Week after week, questions about the quarterback situation were met with vague answers. Kevin Stefanski seemed reluctant to give Sanders any real public ownership in the conversation, while Dillon Gabriel kept getting defended as if the Browns were still trying to convince themselves that was the safer path. And once that happens inside a franchise, it is never just about football. It becomes about hierarchy, about preference, about politics, about who gets protected and who gets parked in the background. That is why this offseason feels less like a normal competition and more like a correction. Because according to the message Monken is sending, Sanders was not a player who needed to be hidden. He was a player who needed to be developed properly.
That's a big part of it. Players being able to have a belief in whoever that player is. That's a huge part of it. But ultimately, it's what the player's belief also comes with how those players play on the field.
He was not just another name in a crowded quarterback room. He was the quarterback this team should be building toward. And Monken did something else that made that point even sharper. He brought up player consensus. He made it sound like the voice of the locker room is going to matter this time. That matters because last year that support apparently existed and did not change much. Veterans and teammates were not blind to what Sanders brought. Myles Garrett has made his belief in him known. Quinshon Judkins and others around the roster have shown support too. The feeling inside the building, at least from this version of events, was that players could see what Sanders was. The difference now is that the coaching staff seems willing to listen. That changes the entire temperature of the situation. Because when the locker room and the coaching staff start pulling in the same direction, a quarterback stops looking like a debate and starts looking like a leader. The conversation moves away from whether he belongs and toward how far he can take the team. Then there is the part that might matter most to coaches, the work. Monken pointed out that Sanders has been the one consistently in the building this offseason. Film work, coach access, daily improvement. While other names drift in and out of the conversation, Sanders is apparently making sure he stays in the building and in the grind. Coaches notice that faster than anything. Not the social media clips, not the headlines, the routine, the availability, the willingness to keep showing up before the spotlight is guaranteed. And when a coach like Monken singles that out, it carries weight. He is not praising effort for the sake of it. He is identifying the player who is acting like the job is already his responsibility, even before it is officially handed to him. On the other side of that equation, the signal around Dillon Gabriel sounds cold. Monken made it clear he had met with Deshaun Watson, but Gabriel was not presented like a meaningful part of where this thing is going. That in itself is a message. The old ambiguity is fading. The franchise is drawing a line between who is central to the future and who is not. And that is why this moment matters beyond one off-season headline. A lot of young quarterbacks get trapped in situations like this and never recover. They get drafted into noise, buried under indecision, measured through politics instead of development. They start pressing. They lose confidence. They internalize every doubt being thrown at them from the outside. According to this story, Sanders did the opposite. He stayed in the work. He stayed ready. He kept moving even when the support around him felt inconsistent. And now the conditions around him are changing. His number is back. His coach is publicly backing him. His teammates believe in him. The reps are following the praise. The praise is following the preparation. That is how an era starts, not with one dramatic speech, but with a series of decisions that all point the same way. Last year, the critics had room to operate. They could say he was overhyped. They could say he was riding his father's name. They could question whether he was built for the NFL. Because Cleveland had not fully committed to proving otherwise, uncertainty gave those takes oxygen. This offseason, that oxygen is disappearing because Todd Monken is not speaking like a man trying to keep every option open. He is speaking like a coach who knows exactly what he is looking at. When he says Sanders is getting the most reps, when he points to the work, when he emphasizes where Sanders is versus where he wants to be, that sounds less like a trial run and more like a blueprint. And if that is what this really is, then Cleveland is not just giving Shedeur Sanders another chance. It is giving him the structure that should have been there sooner. That is the real story here. The jersey matters because it symbolizes identity. The reps matter because they reveal priority. The locker room matters because belief inside the building always shows up before belief outside it. But together, those pieces tell a bigger story than any one headline can. The Browns are no longer hinting. They are aligning. And if that alignment holds, then Shedeur Sanders is not walking into this next chapter as a placeholder or a talking point. He is walking into it as the quarterback this franchise is finally prepared to stand behind. Not quietly, not halfway, and not by accident. And that is where this gets even more interesting because support is one thing, but expectation is something else entirely. Once a coach publicly leans your way, the conversation changes. You are no longer the overlooked option. You are no longer the guy fans are begging to see from a distance. Now every rep means more. Every practice throw gets studied harder. Every decision gets judged through the lens of whether you can actually carry what the organization is starting to place on your shoulders. That is the real turn in the story. Shedeur Sanders is not fighting for attention anymore. He is stepping into responsibility, and that can be harder. Because when a player is buried on the depth chart, people project potential onto him. They imagine what he could be. They defend the idea of him. But once the staff starts giving you the work, once teammates back you, once your name begins to feel connected to the future, potential stops being enough. Now people want command. They want consistency. They want to see the game slow down in your hands. That is why Monken's comments matter beyond the headline. He is not just saying Sanders deserves a look. He is putting structure around him. The most reps means the most chances to lead, the most chances to make mistakes, and the most chances to show whether the confidence around him is justified. That is where real quarterbacks separate themselves. Not when the room is undecided, but when the room starts tilting their way and they have to prove the tilt was earned. And that is why the work ethic piece keeps coming back into focus. Because the quarterbacks who survive moments like this are usually the ones who understand that momentum can disappear fast. One good quote does not win a job. One symbolic jersey change does not settle a season. Public support helps, but it does not protect you from the standard that comes with being treated like the answer. The only thing that holds up once camp gets serious is preparation. That is where Sanders seems to be making his strongest case. Not with noise, not with image, with repetition, with presence, with the kind of daily investment that tells a coaching staff they do not have to drag leadership out of you. And for a team trying to stabilize the most important position on the field, that matters as much as arm talent ever will. Because Cleveland does not just need a quarterback with upside. It needs one who can absorb the weight that comes with this situation. The pressure of expectations, the scrutiny of the market, the comparisons, the second guessing, the constant demand to justify why the franchise should finally move in one clear direction. That is the next stage of this story. Not whether Shedeur Sanders can generate attention. He already does that. The question now is whether he can turn alignment into authority, whether he can take all the signs pointing toward him and make them feel inevitable, whether he can walk into this offseason not just as the most discussed quarterback in the room, but as the one who starts owning the room itself. What makes this story land is not the noise around Shedeur Sanders. It is the shift underneath it. Last year, he was treated like a question mark. This year, the signs are lining up like an answer. The number is back, the reps are there, the coach is speaking with purpose, the locker room knows what it sees. And Shedeur Sanders has done the one thing that always matters most when the politics finally clear out. He stayed ready. That is why this feels bigger than a routine offseason update. This is what it looks like when a player survives the doubt, outworks the confusion, and forces a franchise to stop hesitating. Cleveland can call it competition. People on the outside can keep debating it. But when you strip all of that away, The message is simple. This thing is moving towards Shedeur Sanders. And when a quarterback gets his identity back, his support back, and the building finally starts moving in the same direction, that is when the real story begins. Not the buildup, not the speculation, the real story. So now the pressure shifts. It is no longer on Shedeur to prove he belongs in the conversation. It is on everyone else to deal with what happens when he takes control of it. This chapter is closing. The next one looks a whole lot louder. For more breakdowns like this, stay locked in with Huddle Files. And you already know, we'll have every second of it broken down, every twist, every leak, every hidden play behind the headlines. So like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share it out. Stay locked in with Huddle Files, where the real NFL stories live.